small in number we may be, but let's get going. Welcome to PTIC this afternoon. I am Tim Rivet and I'm the chair of this group. Given there aren't too many of us, do we all know each other? I wonder, maybe not. So let's do a few introductions. So we have apologies from Ian Barrett from Lancashire, and we have apologies from John Austin from Southend, latterly, lots of other hats previously. He is also not going to be joining us in future because he is under the Southend hat, because he is taking the opportunity to retire. Tomorrow is his last day, so we won't have John with his Southend hat on. At this point, I would like to just record some thanks to John Austin for many years of service to PTIC. At various points, he's carried out various sort of roles, taking notes and standing into chair and things like that. So I'd like to thank him for his work over the years on that. Right, so notes of the last meeting, which was the 6th of March. There were a few actions, first of which was about fields in Naptan and links to accessibility in the work that is going on with NetX. So I passed details on to Dr. J of the team that are doing that, and gave some advice there. Over the page, there's some work going on, which we will perhaps pick up later on. Disruptions service, updating Sirius X to support, or the disruption service to support cancellations, and Jonathan from KPMG was after copy of the document. I shared that with him, but it wasn't the week after the meeting, it was more recently than that. Then couple of actions all the way through under discussion on fares about use cases, which both have been picked up, and they are on the agenda under the issues log, so we can pick up where we are with those at that point. And I don't know, we haven't got Mark Jones from Wales with us, nor Dr. J, so I don't know whether they've talked about Transport for Wales bus stops, but so we'll keep that on and talk to Mark. And block number, we haven't had a call about that to talk about providing and maintaining it. It is an issues log, and let's pick it up at that point, because we do need to talk about it as a bit of a subset, probably. So that's the minutes from the last call. Is there anything anybody wants to raise follow on from those? No. Okay, in which case we will move on. So on the agenda, we are due to have Bus Open Data Digital Service Update. Triumph unfortunately can't join us until closer to 3 o'clock. So we'll just need to jiggle things around. Which then moves on to NAPTAN. Unfortunately, there is within the NAPTAN team, Dr. J, who many of you know, is taking some leave at the moment, and so can't join us. I've got a call with the BB, who is the product owner of NAPTAN, tomorrow to work out how we can keep the work on NAPTAN progressing. So not much in reality has changed within NAPTAN since our meeting in March. The work with Google Street View and accessibility analysis is progressing. Trying to expand the discovery and alpha that was done last year, looking at the accessibility of bus stops, which we've had updates on in this group previously, progresses, and agreements are just being revised with Google to handle the extension and the expansion to more authority areas. If you are a NAPTAN owner for an authority and want to be involved in the next phase of the Accessibility Plus project to help with working out which stops are accessible, then probably best let me know, and I'll manage that request into the NAPTAN team, given the staffing challenges in NAPTAN at the moment. One thing that was set up in NAPTAN just before the turn of the year, and there was a lot of conversations over the early few months of this year. It was around the acceptance is probably the right word of stops with an ATCO area code of 999. So the concept of this is to enable bus stops which aren't in NAPTAN but are necessary for operational purposes. So, for example, you have a coach service that stops at a service station on a motorway to allow the driver to have a rest break, passengers to get on and off and, go to the loo and buy chocolate bars or whatever they do at the service station, and then get on again to be properly reflected. They are not meant for public facing bus stops, so You shouldn't be able to board and alight as a passenger, but they're for operational purposes. So like those rest stops, an operator could use them for example, the location of their depot, so they can set up dead runs to help with quality of predictions, positioning stops between journeys, those sort of things. Things that the passenger doesn't need to know about, but are important operationally, and you wouldn't necessarily want to be setting up in Naptan with all of the overhead that goes with that. So there's support for 999 stops. There was a lot of questions about, well, actually, you know, what information is needed to support them and things like that. So last month, I think it was, or was it April? Yeah, last month, beginning of last month, Artig produced a short advice note on how to use these 999 area code stops, the non-passenger stops, ostensibly in real-time systems, but the same goes for how you might want to present them in use when you're using them in scheduling software or journey planners, for example, because whilst they shouldn't be shown to the public because they can't board or alight there, they need to be factored into journey time cancellations and journey time between public stops and things like that. Yeah, so this goes through what needs to be provided, what the mandatory fields are, because if an operator is providing them in a trans exchange file, for example, then you can't just give it a number, because you're the only one as the operator that knows what that reference is, because you can't do a lookup like you would to a normal stop in Naptan. So you need to be providing a minimum set of information. So it goes through those steps. It also tackles some of the interesting challenges that you might come across about where to put them, for example, for operational purposes, particularly around depots where you might have lots of vehicle movements in the geofence that might normally be set up around a bus stop to detect when a vehicle leaves or enters the stop area, and so talks about some of those sort of considerations to stop early departures and sort of issues like that. So hopefully that is a useful document for people. It was circulated with the papers. You can find it on the Artig website. It's been circulated through a fair number of transport forums, OpDI and things like that. Has anybody read it, got any questions, any feedback on it and things like that? Because it tries to tackle the questions that we think people had and were asking us at that point, but there may be more, of course. It's a perfect. Oh, Dan, yes.
Hi, Tim. Yeah, so obviously I had a brief read when you forwarded this document on before. It might be worthwhile talking through how. So this is basically going to go into the normal Naptan kind of CSV and XML data as part of it and be publicly available to everyone. And then we rely on operators then to follow the rules when it comes to coding this into the trans exchange data. I guess I've just got a general concern that operators might not do that, and I've also got that suddenly some of these stops may then appear or become confusing for downstream users, that they may be publicly available stops or something like that. I don't know. It's always a bit of a worry in the back of my mind that people start thinking they can get a coach from the Newbury services or something like that because someone's not coded it correctly. And I'm not sure how or what their kind of department maybe is a better thing. What's their kind of view of trying to get that out there? Because obviously before, back in the day, we used to have supplementary files in NapTan that you could then supplement the main kind of data set with lookups and things like that. My concern more so is this goes into the main one that it could be wrongly interpreted by people.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why this was put together to help, with the advice for downstream data consumers, and to make it clear that they shouldn't be presented to the public. So yeah, it is a risk. It's something that we will need to monitor, but it's also something that the department recognised was needed as more pressure goes on operators to improve the quality of real-time information and operational data that's being transferred around, and the constraints on authorities where they were being asked to put in depots for dead runs and things like that. And arguably that's got more risk of confusion because you just plot on a map where all stops are, and somebody like Google might take that and then present it as as the stop outside the depot for people to use it. So it's a really difficult one.
I think the other thing is the examples obviously that I've shared previously about obviously the coach data, that like, all the international stops started being coded as 999 incorrectly even, and so that was always a bit of a concern. If you've got someone like who's that close to the standards on how things should be done, I'm just a bit worried about how this might play out, and I think there needs to be some sort of like, I don't know how you'd report it or sense check it or something like that. I don't know how that would look, but
yeah. So Amy has similar concerns. Lisa.
Hi, Tim. So we create, as an authority, we created some stops which within our within our NapTan database for monitoring and stuff like that, and then we hide them in the real-time system. Would you recommend that we get the operators to just go down this route with a 999 and get rid of these what look like real stops but are not real stops?
So these 999 stops would be a perfect example of where that sort of point for monitoring purposes that's not a public facing stop. That's the sort of thing that this is designed for. There is an interesting thing that the assumption is that operators would be creating these, and so the suggested format for the codes for the ATCO code is that you use the your NOC code within that number to make sure that you don't have two operators creating stop 0001 and it clashing somewhere in a system. So perhaps we need to think about how we suggest authorities, if you're creating them, number them.
I'm happy with the 999. It was more saying, do I go back, like, I don't know, like Transdev, they've got a lot of their services built to these dummy stops. So to go back to them and say, right, can you actually create your own stop and rebuild those routes? It's just, they'll see it as being more work when it's already there for them.
Yeah. So, some authorities would say to operators, no, we're not going to create them. So, that was sort of the opposite side of the problem that you've got. So when you say dummy stops, though, how do you identify they're not for passenger use, and somebody just taking the NAPTAN database and putting it on a map?
I mean, the stop name is real-time tracking, so it'll probably still go. So it's just one of those, getting what I'm asking operators to do. And on another question, well, not question, but I still get a lot of operators using 999 as temporary stops until the NAPTAN goes in from the authority. So they're creating their own dummy stops. So that's just,
this sort of validates that, but they would be public stops, wouldn't they? So perhaps there's a need. I don't know what others think, whether there's a need for one of those sort of temporary stops while a real one is created to have another number, or whether that just confuses things. But authorities creating one. Let me take that away and talk to the NAPTAN team about that. John.
A quick question, if I may. I can't help you with the technicalities of the topic you've just been discussing, but I had occasion to visit NAPTAN recently to look at the list of stops in my hometown, and obviously there are a lot of defunct stops. I know why they're still there, but about 10% of the current stops, which are shown on my county council's timetables and public information displays, aren't in NAPTAN at all. I don't know whether that's about par for the course. Is that typical of the sort of rate of absenteeism you would expect? It's actually in Hertfordshire.
No, it's quite dependent on authorities and how on the ball they are with keeping NAPTAN up to date. But 10% feels higher than normal, to be fair.
The onus is on them, I take it. It just seemed odd that they're using these stops and showing them on maps and so on, and in their full stop timetables, but not evidently bothering to add them to NAPTAN, which is curious. But anyway, I'll pursue it.
That is curious. I might follow that up with you, John.
Yeah, will do. Cheers.
Yeah. Okay, Mike.
Hi, I was just going to say, I was just going to agree with what's been said. What Lisa said about the possible use of these type of stops for temporary dummy stops by operators until the NAPTAN is allocated, because we've certainly had lots of route changes by Leicestershire County Council that are done right at the last minute, and the operator has to get out data often long before the NAPTANs are allocated, and so they just have to put something in there basically, otherwise we've got nothing. So I imagine that this is designed for that kind of situation, or not really? It's not really, is it?
It's not really, because they're supposed to be non-passenger stops.
Okay.
Well,
maybe perhaps we ought to decide whether it hadn't ought to be used for that then, perhaps.
I would. Amy.
Okay, so the only other one I was thinking of was these being used in the coach data set specifically for the stops that are not in England, Scotland and Wales, that again are not NAPTAN but are passenger stops, and whether they need a separate code entirely or whether they would come under this or not. but they're just a slightly different flavour of stop again, because they are passenger facing, but they're not within the realms of NAPTAN. So they're just slightly different again to maybe the driver rest stops and the dead run stops and things like that, because they are passenger facing and some people might want to use them, but they're not within NAPTAN for a different reason, I guess.
These are the ones, you know, the coach is going to Paris and it stops in, you know, in Paris and might stop in Calais or something like that. So it's those. Well, they will have their own reference in the European stop databases, but perhaps that's slightly harder for people to work through. Dan, I'm sure you will have a view on out of country coach stops.
Well, it's a bit of your coach data. Just lots of the coach data now doesn't have valid NAPTAN data within it, so they're pulling across the source data codes in many of the examples. So lots of National Express local codes are being utilised that aren't valid NAPTANs anyway, and for international stops they're bringing across other things. So obviously back in the day when we ran the NCSD, our criteria is everything had to be mapped to a NAPTAN stop, but you've now got an open data set that there's no requirement for it to be mapped to a NAPTAN stop, which just seems a bit of a dangerous situation to be in. And yes, I don't know. I think the international stuff at the moment is better than having a local code that's recognised by the operator. It could be an internal code as part of it that's being published, but again, for a consumer that wants to utilise it, that there's not much more information apart from what is being decided to be provided. I think Amy's idea of a different code for stuff that is out of country is probably quite a good idea, because then I do still think that every bit of public transport data that is published in Great Britain should be attached to a valid NAPTAN lookup, because it's meant, the two things are meant to be explicitly linked together.
Yeah. So that therefore suggests that we need a code for out of country and a code for temporary stops whilst a proper NAPTAN stop is being created. So you might put some rules around that one in particular. You know, you can't use it for more than 6 months or something like that without it being flagged in BODs or something like that. So yeah, okay, Keith.
So isn't there already that function in NAPTAN where the operator can put in 999 for 3 or 6 months?
So
no, in Trans-Exchange, they can put in a 999 code for 3 or 6 months before they get told off.
So at the moment, if you submit data to BODs and you need to have a location that isn't in the NAPTAN database, the classic examples at this time of year are festival stops where it's in the middle of a field and out for a weekend or something like that. Then there are rules that check that stop isn't being used in an operating profile that's valid for more than something like 3 months or something like that, to allow for those sort of temporary festival event type stops. So that's slightly different, but that if there was an official code for that, that would help perhaps make things clearer. Yeah, Dan.
Just on that, on the festival one, it's interesting. So, National Express published their timetables for Glastonbury Festival about ever since the tickets go on sale in October, and obviously the festival is July, end of June. So there's more than that kind of distance between that. But the data is being published, so people can get on them festival services way in advance. I remember seeing lots and lots and lots of festival services that we used to admit because it wasn't going to a valid NAPTAN location as part of it, so it didn't meet our kind of criteria for being published. But there's lots and lots of the data would be published 8 or 9 months before a festival even took place. So even using that rule you mentioned just there, it would break that because the data being published far in advance.
Yeah, okay, that's yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay. Good set of conversations about stops there. Is there anything else before we move on? I will make sure that the NAPTAN team put something out about their thoughts about these additional stop types that we've been talking about. No. Okay. In which case, let's move on to Traveline update. Mike.
Thanks, Tim. Afternoon, everybody. So just give you the latest update from Traveline and Plusbus. The previous PTIC meeting, we gave the update. We literally signed the contract with Passenger, I think, while the meeting was going on. So that's for our new web services. So Passenger will be delivering 3 websites for us, which is the Traveline website and customer-facing journey planner, Plusbus website, and also the Traveline data site where users access TNDS, NOC, and other data sets that we provide. In addition to the websites, we also get the bonus that they will be developing as an app as well as part of that, which will feature the journey planner and a whole host of other information. So Passenger are now well underway with the development of that, and we're working with them on a kind of weekly basis in updating in those areas. As part of the agreement, they've already stood up an interim version of the Plusbus website. The driver for that was that the previous Plusbus website, the hosting arrangements weren't 100% secure in our view. It's a site we inherited, so they've been kind enough to stand up an interim version, which gives a bit of a freshened look and feel to it, but it's more around the hosting arrangements. So we will be getting a new and improved Plusbus website coming downstream alongside the others as well. We hope to share some options for visuals with the Traveline and Plusbus board shortly. That's something that Passenger have been working on. And in parallel, we've been working on a number of the improvements in terms of how we may incorporate and present disruptions information, fares information, along with some Plusbus zonal information on there as well. Another area that we've been working on over the last couple of years, we've been working with a company called Good Journey, who have been producing a whole host of leisure and attraction content for us for ideas of where to go, and also negotiating discounts for attractions as well. One of the things that we are working with them and with Passenger on is how we square the circle with that and bring that content in and surface that content in the new Traveline journey planner. So when journey plans are presented, appropriate attractions will be presented alongside that as ideas of places you might want to go, not necessarily on this trip, but on future trips as well. So we're hopefully driving future public transport use and also getting people, discount using public transport when they're kind of visiting attractions. So we're still working. We had a meeting this morning with Passenger. We're still working to a deadline of September, October is where we're kind of setting that, and obviously the return to school and university will kind of dictate when we may go live. We've got that to consider in there as well, and we also need to consider the choreography of do we go live with all the websites or with a website at a time and the app as well. So we're currently working on that, but we're still working on the kind of September, October, autumn, if you like, early autumn kind of go live. That want to get that pushed into live. So that's the big update on Traveline. On Plusbus over the last few months, we've spoke about the e-ticket trial for the last couple of meetings. So following a successful trial in Cambridge, Weston-super-Mare and 7 schemes in West Yorkshire, we launched or went live with the e-ticket across the UK on the 7th of April. So that's all 280 Plusbus schemes are now available to purchase as an e-ticket, which is an RDG accredited barcode ticket that you can buy through certain rail retailing ticketing apps. We've also during that period worked with Ticketer, Transmac and other ETM providers on scanning and validating the ticket. Pleased to say they've been really supportive in that, and ticket ETMs and Transmac can now scan and validate tickets. In some areas we're still relying on operators to update software and hardware to allow this, but we're pleased to say across the piece we are seeing scan data coming through now, which is a first for Plusbus. We can see people are actually buying it and using it and where they're using it as well, which that'll only kind of grow as we kind of move forward. We did launch it under the guise of a quiet launch, if you like. We haven't really gone out, done any wild promotion on it yet. We just made the tickets available in the RDG back office, which then encourages rail retailers to come along and start selling it. So to date, we've got Trip.com is the biggest that we've got on board. We've also got Train Split and TrainPal are retailing tickets. So that means when a Plusbus ticket is available on a certain journey, so for example, Leeds to Manchester would offer you a Plusbus ticket at either end. The customer at the point of payment is now offered the Plusbus ticket. So in some ways, we couldn't get a better position on there that as someone's checking out, they're offered the Plusbus ticket. At that point, if they purchase it, it's served up to their phone as a barcode, which let's say they can go and scan it. Where they can't scan it, operators and drivers are briefed to accept as a flash pass. So that's been going really well. And please report since go live, which is just over 8 weeks, we've recorded just over 8,000 sales, which isn't bad from a standing start. We're currently accounting for around 20% of all Plus sales through the e-ticket. And again, pleased to report that we've just done some data crunching this morning. Period 2 in the rail calendar, which runs from the 28th of April to the 26th of May. We've seen that sales this year are up 46% revenue on the previous year, and actually 52% on actual units sold as well. So we are seeing an increase, and hopefully what that is showing, what we believe it is showing, the e-tickets are representing new sales rather than just transferring sales from paper across. The next challenge will be going out for a loud launch, what we're terming a loud launch, probably back end of June, start of July. There's still a couple of things we need to work on with a few of the app retailers in getting suppression code embedded into their apps that prevent any NFC clashes on certain ticket machines. Once we've got those in, which I say should be the next couple of weeks, we're working closely with them and Apple to make this happen. We'll then look to do some kind of broader promotions and really kind of make some noise around it, up and down the country, and also working with local scheme coordinators in their local areas to promote the ticket. But I think the initial kind of steps are we're pretty pleased with how it's going so far. We are monitoring feedback on this, as you'd expect. We are going to get some people refuse travel and challenged by drivers, but to date, we've had 19 items of feedback reach us, which, given the backdrop of 8,000 sales, appreciate not everybody is going to complain, and some will go elsewhere to complain, but 19 direct to the source of the kind of the administrators of the scheme seems pretty impressive so far. So hopefully when we transfer to, let's say, to the loud launch and make a bit more noise about it, we do expect to see that figure go up. But where we have had issues, and if anyone on the call who's kind of is kind of any close to customer service, that if you receive issues, please pass anyone on to us. Where we have received them, complaints have gone to the local scheme coordinators and the offending operator, and they've been pretty quick to issue refunds, and also rebrief drivers on the acceptance of the ticket. So that's to be expected, but we're pretty pleased so far. Like I said, we've got the 3 main retailers on board at the minute. We are expecting more to come on board. We are talking to the likes of Traveline in the background, which they're obviously the big fish that once they start retailing, we should see a significant shift in this. And I think the main thing is it ticks the integrated travel box that, as you're buying a rail ticket, you can seamlessly add a bus ticket. So it's, big step forward over the last few months. We should see, like I say, more noise made about it, and around that we are starting to see people or certain areas come forward wanting new plus schemes. So since the last meeting, we're about to launch a new scheme in Hucknall, and also in Burnham as well, down in Slough, have also come forward, and we are getting daily contact from rail operators now. So it does feel as if Plus Bus is starting to come to life a little bit, having been available for 20 years, but probably been one of the best kept secrets, and that's probably due to the dated retail offer. So hopefully we'll start seeing that increase as we go forward, and like I say, more and more retailers coming on board. But apart from that, Tim, back to you if there's any questions from the floor. But you're on mute, Tim.
One day I'll learn. Yeah, no, really healthy growth, really impressive. Yeah, well done. Has anybody got any questions for Mike about Traveline Plus Bus? So, Mike, when you say 3 websites, Traveline and Plus Bus got a lot of reference. The third one,
the Traveline data, yeah. So the data website it's always probably the poor relation. Not poor, there's nothing poor about it, but yeah, it's probably the younger of the family, I suppose. That's there as from open data users' point of view. So the Traveline data website, we keep that separate because obviously the customer focus on the Traveline.info website being the journey planner and all that kind of the good stuff around attractions, that kind of thing. Traveline data is very much aimed at the open data users, so TNDS etc. made available from there. As it is at the minute, so it's really just a refresh and kind of reskim of that. But we will look to make further data available if anyone wants it on there. And it's very much us providing our data via that mechanism, but also signposting other data sets that might be useful to open data users.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, John.
Again, sorry, naive question. Should know the answer, I'm sure. But is the data on the number of Plus Bus tickets sold for each scheme on any publicly accessible site, if you're curious as to know which ones are popular and which areas aren't?
It's not Publicly available at the moment, John, because there's some commercially sensitive data in the data that we hold. However, we have been asked by a number of TOCs and retailers if we can share something which gives that the idea of the volume of sales in each area. So that's something we are looking at the potential making available, but it's not currently public available.
Well, I think it would be helpful and interesting. It might give you some ideas of which areas you need to concentrate your targeting your promotion.
Absolutely, yeah. We can see it internally, and like I said, we share it with the local scheme coordinators. So those in each area can see where they sit in relation to other schemes. So hopefully that will do it. But you're right, it's something we'd like to make more widely available, and we'll consider how that we might do that and keep the commercial guys happy as well.
Great, thanks.
Nick.
Yeah, in terms of disruption information, will that be picking up from the DFT disruptions tool going forward? Because in Cornwall, we're trying to populate as many disruptions as we come across into that tool. But at the moment, obviously, they don't surface in very many locations. We're using it obviously internally in our website, and bustimes.org is using it, but it doesn't seem to appear very many other places at the moment.
Yeah, that's our intention. We put in the requirement that we ingest from the BODS disruption information tool, Nick. Yeah, we obviously across the country we see mixed use of it. There's some areas use it quite heavily. There's others that don't. And you're right. We're hopeful that our use of it may increase the input at the other end, because I think a lot of people would put more in there. They can see it being surfaced. So our intention is to use the BODS data, and that's what we've challenged Passenger with. So that's what we're working on at the moment. We're also looking if there's any other routes we can take disruption information from, because obviously some operators have their own systems. Passenger currently work with over 100 operators, and they offer a kind of mechanism in there as well. So we may take it from multiple sources, but the BODS disruption tool is definitely one we hope to take it from.
Now that's actually caused a source of frustration for us at the moment, is that we're between local authority and the operators, we're entering every disruption twice, because our county-wide Transport for Cornwall app is a passenger app.
Yeah.
So we're having to enter it in there and also enter it into the DFT tool.
No, and that might help square that circle, Nick. That if we can, because like I said, with us working with Passenger, if we can get the feed into ours, there's no reason why they can't take that. Potentially for other customers. Obviously, can't sign them up for anything like that. But yeah, no, appreciate that. I was previously local authority side, and that was always frustration from our point. We were updating the same multiple systems with the same thing. I don't know where as well. One of the other questions we were going to post to DFT was where they were with potentially letting operators put data in there as well. Because I know it's obviously had largely an LTA used tool, and that was the intention of it. But I know there was talk at some point around, could operators be given licenses, because if they're closer to the source and they're putting it in there, as long as everyone's happy with the data that's going in there and it's agreed format, is that come through? I've just seen Triumph's landed actually with his hand up, so that might be.
That's certainly our intention in Cornwall, is to move the responsibility for populating it to the operators.
Yeah. And yeah, it'd be a useful conversation. I think that's having it. Yeah, and yeah. So we if there's data in there, we'd like to use it and surface it, and we're definitely looking at that.
Yeah, thanks.
Go out to that, Mike and Nick. So from a departmental perspective, we did start a process of getting operators to amending the disruptions tool to enable operators provide disruptions data, but we are still getting a lot of pushback from local authorities who want to control definitely the language and the tone in which that message is being sent out. So the DFT is ready for that. We just still have a lot of local authorities who aren't quite ready for that. So maybe, we're happy to work with the industry to see how we deal with that, but we are just very mindful that local authorities are still pushing back on operators getting licenses to the disruptions tool.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That was the case previously, Triumph. Yeah, so it'd be useful to see where it goes, and like I say, hopefully, if we can use some of that data, we can show them the benefit of getting it out there and how it might appear. So,
yeah, okay, Mike.
A slightly tangential question, but seeing as Mike mentioned Traveline data, I had cause the other day just to check the National Operator Code database, which I can never remember where it is, but from my investigations, it appears to be on Traveline data is where the national operator codes are stored. So is that the only place that they're kept? Is it?
That's where that's the interface that we provide with it, Mike. Yeah, it's through Traveline data. So we're responsible for the management of the NOC database.
All right. Okay. So it's not a government thing, that one then. So that's a.
I think it was one of those. Yeah, it was born many moons ago, and it kind of we took over, we adopted it.
Right,
I think so. Yeah, so it lives with us. So yeah, we kind of manage the ongoing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cheers. Just a bit of useful information. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, Nick. Is that a new hand, Nick, or is that an old one?
Apologies, it is a new one, and I'm having microphone and headset problems.
Oh.
Yeah, no, going back to the point about operators using the disruption system, yeah, quality of messaging, the language used, the tone is a big problem I come across at the moment with the way we're using the passenger app for Transport for Cornwall, where the two main operators have got access to put messages on, and there's two very different styles of message going on, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
So we're having to really tighten up and bring it back to a point where the messages going on need to be succinct, what, where, when, how.
Yeah,
potentially to the point, because we've got operators who are putting hyperlinks to their own websites in to the data, and all sorts. So the whole idea of Transport for Cornwall app is one place to go and look for data, and then we've got an operator who's putting hyperlinks to take people off to their own website for the full information.
Yeah.
So lots of challenges around giving operators the ability to enter data into systems, I believe.
Absolutely, Nick. If you wouldn't mind, it'd be useful if we could take a conversation offline. Because one of the things we are quite keen to understand is the end user use of the passenger system, so passenger cloud for disruptions, etc. Because we're looking at how we might do some of this. So if it was all right, if I could contact you after the meeting, it'd be useful just to understand some of the challenges you've got there, because we're going to face similar trying to do this kind of nationwide, and it might be something we can help with as well in terms of coordination. So if you didn't mind, I'll reach out after the meeting to have a quick chat.
Yeah, sure, no worries.
Thanks, Nick, appreciate that.
Thanks.
It also feels like there's perhaps some guidance on language and tone and what should be in there. Some authorities that allow limited access to messaging systems for displays and websites have those. So there's some, there is some pre-work done on that, but that sort of feels like perhaps that at a national level might be useful.
Yeah. I don't know, Tim, whether I do recall having these conversations in the Transport for the North days when the original disruption messaging tool was getting developed. I don't know if those could be surfaced anywhere, or whether we could. Is there anyone we can reach out for anything like that? Because we definitely spoke about tone and how you might classify a disruption and things like that. Because what Triumph and Nick has said is exactly right. That I remember that going back years ago where we were saying, do you trust people to put it in, and are they putting the right links in and stuff? And like I said, there's some work already been done that we could probably build.
Yeah,
on. Have we got any contacts?
I wrote the draft.
Did you? Yeah, you probably involved him. Yeah, absolutely. So if you could email us all that, Tim, and then we'll work from there.
That was done for TFN, and
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Diane was, I think, responsible at that point. But I know I don't have a copy because it was done for them. So I wonder where all that IST stuff been.
Because there was a lot of useful conversation. Just to, I suppose that prevent all the same conversations going on again. There was a lot of useful stuff in there, and a lot of thought given to it, I think, by everybody. And it kind of felt we got somewhere that it was. That's how we classify disruption. That's the kind of wording you'd use. You wouldn't just put out. I think one of the frustrations always that people say everything's running 30 minutes late was often something that came from operators when, if it was a 10-minute frequency, nothing's really late. Probably the bus that's meant to be there isn't there, but from a customer point of view, it wasn't. And a lot of work had been done around that. So
yeah, I'll take an action to try and see.
Yeah, if there's anything out there,
where those Transport for the North archives have ended up, because there was quite a lot of work done that it would be gone into the ether somewhere, never to come back out. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Any more for Traveline? Some really interesting stuff there today.
Thanks, Tim.
No, okay, thank you. We have Triumph with us, so let's jump back on the agenda to BODs and an update from Triumph on the programme.
Thanks, Tim. Just give me a minute. Let me get my screen ready. There we go. Okay, so I will try provide an update on the service. But first, I think it's what providing an update on procurement. I am going to just provide an update on the entire process till date. Some of you may more conversant with where we are with our procurement. If you are, then I apologize for repeating what you know. But for those who aren't, I'm just going to go through the whole process so you understand the journey so far. So as you may all know, we have been doing both for a long time now, and in the entirety of the life of the service so far, we've had one supplier, KPMG. The contract with KPMG is coming to an end in September. And, for the last year and then some, we have been engaged in procurement activity to, retender or reprocure the service or run a robust procurement to essentially get whoever the supplier is going to be for the future of the service for the next, 5 years. To kick that off, we sent out an RFI in March last year, and we sent out that through 3 different frameworks and openly as well through contract finders to generate awareness and interest in the opportunity. 29 responses were received, and those 29 responses were then invited to a supplier day in May last year. Of the 29 responses, about 28 different companies were represented at that supplier day. We were able to essentially give them an update of the service, but also lay down our vision for the service going forward. And they also all got an opportunity to ask, questions via QA session, a group QA session and one-to-one sessions. On the back of that, we then released selection questionnaires, of which we received 29 responses for the SQs. And we then we whittled that down to 6 suppliers who we took through to ITT. We launched the ITT in March this year. Of the 6 suppliers who we took through from the SQ stage, 1 of those suppliers dropped out, and we received 5 responses to the ITT. We have now completed the evaluation and the moderation of the ITT, and we are just at the moment going through post-moderation assurance and governance activities to finalize things. It is our expectation that we will be able to communicate the procurement outcome by the end of this month, beginning of next month. So that is where we are on the boards and ABOD's technical delivery. There we go. We have made a decision to split the procurement into 2. The boards and ABOD's technical delivery is the bit I have spoken to you about. There is another procurement that we are engaging on insofar as business change and industry engagement is concerned. As you may know, at the moment, that function and the technical delivery are included in one big contract that the incumbent supplier has. We feel that going forward, to maximize the impact of boards, we're splitting those into 2. And we are running 2 separate procurements for the technical delivery and the industry engagement team, which we are calling the Boss Connect team. Insofar as the procurement for the Boss Connect team is concerned, we sent out an expression of interest in November last year to suppliers to confirm whether our chosen framework and lot MCA3 lot 1 was the appropriate route to market. The feedback we received on that confirmed our position that that is an appropriate route to market. So we are going to procure the service using that framework and that lot. We are hoping to have an in-person supplier day, which was originally planned for the 11th of June, but due to some feedback that we've received, we are moving that back by a few weeks to, I think, the tentative date at the moment. The revised date, sorry, is the 23rd of June. And we're having that supplier day either in Birmingham or in London. So all of that change was confirmed today after I had made this slide. Hence, there isn't been an update to this. But essentially, we're going to hold a supplier day at some point on the between the week of the 23rd of June, where all the suppliers within the selected lots and framework will be invited, and just like for the procurement for technical delivery, we'll be able to lay down our vision and our expectation, and suppliers will then have a chance to to ask us the questions that they need to ask us in order to understand exactly what it is they're going to be bidding for if they chose to bid for the work. We intend to publish the ITT. Now that we've moved the date on the supplier date, there's probably going to be a week slippage, so probably the end of June, the beginning of July. And once we do that, we would go through the whole sort of evaluation moderation process, and the post moderation sort of governance and assurance frameworks. And hopefully at some point in the summer, we hope to award the contract. So that's the procurement update. I would stop at this point to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you, Triumph. Any questions on the procurement? No.
Good stuff.
Okay.
We'll move on to service updates, what we've done recently. I would just touch upon the vision of boards. It is still we are very committed to the vision that we've set out, which is boards becoming the single source of truth for complete, accurate, and timely board service information. We want to enable open and accurate board data publication, improve compliance, and facilitate data consumption and data sharing across the industry. And all of that, we hope, consequently would improve passenger journey and journey experience through the utilization of high quality data to support passenger journey planning and finding best value fares. In light of this vision, I think since the last time we had some of these, there has been some changes and improvements to the service. Some of you who are quite close to the service may know all of this already, and once again, apologize for repeating what you know. For those who don't, I'd explain everything that we've done over the last few months. We have rebuilt the data quality service, which hitherto had been provided to the DFT as a on a proprietary software as a service basis. We have now brought that in-house, and there were critical concerns around usability and accuracy by users, but there were also critical concerns from the GDS around the openness as a service and being open by default. And based on that, we have rebuilt that service, and we have brought significant enhancements, including the redesigning of data quality checks and introduction of new validation rules, shaped by feedback that we have received from users. In addition to that, reporting capabilities and issue identification workflows have been substantially improved, and we hope that these updates would enable publishers to more efficiently identify and resolve data quality issues pre and post publication of data to boards. In the same vein, we have also rebuilt the ABODS platform, which I'll touch upon later. We have now rebuilt the whole thing on DFT infrastructure. Before that, ABODS, just like the DQS, was provided on a proprietary software as a service basis. After successful user testing early this year, the new platform was launched in March. And since then, we have onboarded users from the old service to the new service. We have gone through webinars and drop-in sessions to, train and support users around the new changes to the service, and essentially, familiarizing them with the new service to ensure utilization of the service. Key features have been added to the new ABODs as an improvement to the service. So things like, location-based performance insights and a user-friendly compliance dashboard, which was released in May. We are hoping these enhancements would help, publishers of data look at, analyze and see the reporting on the data and easily fix and identify issues as well, but also enable local authorities to utilize ABODs for the various purposes for which they want to utilize ABODs and derive a lot of value from utilizing ABODs. We have improved the disruption service, which we spoke about, to include or consume data directly from Street Manager. This, we believe, would allow users view roadworks in their areas and access the impacts on public transport, but also allow seamless connections between roadworks and disruptions. Users who are doing this can now specify key details around, such as location, highway authority, validity periods, as well as various other details to provide a clearer view on how roadworks are affecting the bus network. GTFS and GTFS-RT have now been brought in-house as well, just like ABODS and DQS that was provided on a proprietary software as a service basis. We have done this, and this has marked, a significant shift away from, reliance on a third-party supplier. This move ensures that the data is closer to source, and hopefully we can improve, accuracy and reliability. But more importantly, it lays the groundwork for future enhancements to the GTFS offering, including the future integration of fares, disruptions updates, and also expanded accessibility features. CSD has now been brought in-house as part of the wider program initiative to bring, services in-house. Just like ABODS, DQS, and GTFS, we've moved away from reliance on a third-party supplier. The provision of coach data is now integrated into BODS. By bringing data closer to source, we hope that this paves the way for future improvements to the NCSD offering. And as a result of this transition, our commercial arrangements with the previous NCSD supplier has now formally ended. The AVL service as well has been brought in-house. So what was known as the centralized AVL service, CAVL, has now been replaced by a DFT-owned open source, open code alternative called Integrated AVL Service, IAVL. This move aims to improve the accuracy and reliability of AVL data, whilst laying a strong foundation for future enhancements to the IAVL platform. In addition to moving away, we have now, we are currently, over the last, or the recent past, we have been working on a subscription model for AVL, which we hope will significantly enhance scalability and efficiency, particularly for large-scale AVL data consumers of pods. We have introduced a timetable visualizer as well, which allows publishers to view, users, not just publishers, users to view uploaded trans-exchange data in a human-readable print-style timetable for any selected dates. The we hope this development would help publishers ensure the accuracy of their timetable data on boards prior and post publication, significantly reducing the risk of releasing incorrect and misleading sort of timetable information. As far as the platform is concerned, we've enhanced the data model. So the platform's underlying data model has been expanded to enable new feature capabilities and to accommodate more detailed trans-exchange elements. This enhancement, we hope would establish a strong foundation for future innovations throughout the BODS platform. We have done some work on sort of timetable and fares, really. File level processing. We hope so instead of requiring complete upload of the entire dataset level before proceeding, these functionalities will enable individual files within a dataset to be processed and validated independently. The hope and the intention is for this to reduce delays caused by problematic files and allows the rest of the files within a data set to move forward within the data pipeline. Consequently, this would lead to faster data uploads, fewer bottlenecks, and overall quicker turnaround times for publishing both timetables and fares data. We have done some work on multi-operator fares, so operators participating in regional ticketing schemes can now collaboratively generate NetX files representing multi-operator fare products using the free DFT-provided Create Fares data service. This simplifies the creation and maintenance of coordinated fare structures across sort of different users insofar as multi-operator fares are concerned. We've also integrated validation directly into the publishing workflow. This would ensure that fares data are consistent, accurate, and compliant with the NetX standard. This, we hope, reduces the administrative burden, but also, promotes interoperability and downstream enables passengers to access, seamless multi-operator fare options available to them. We've done some work on local devolved registrations, so not just building a devolved registration functions that allows for the aggregation and standardization of devolved registrations data outside the OTC registrations data set. We have now provided we are now developed the service to ingest devolved registrations data from the DFT, newly developed devolved registrations data set. This enables boards to have a more comprehensive and integrated view of in-scope registered services and ensures that we are capturing a complete picture insofar as bus registration is concerned. This would enable boards to, more accurately handle registrations data, but also ensures that our compliance reporting on boards is more fit for purpose. We recognize that there are ongoing improvements that need to be made to fine-tune that service, and we're doing we are constantly working on that and ensuring that we also address certain unforeseen issues that have arrived due to devolved registrations, which we are then beginning to uncover as a result of the progress that we have made on these. We've done some work around prevention of duplicate data. So new safeguards have been introduced to the service to prevent duplication of data by ensuring that single services cannot be published multiple times across data sets. We hope to eliminate the risk of data duplication, redundant entries, and we believe that data publishers would benefit as a result of the reduced or almost elimination of duplication errors across the data set. We hope that this feature would contribute to a more reliable and efficient data publication process, which downstream would also improve the trust that data consumers are having with the consumption of boards. We've done some work to ensure that boards is now compliant with WCAG 2.2 AA standards. This reflects our continued commitment to accessibility, usability, and equitable digital access for all users. We've done some work around expanded data health indicators, and that has now incorporated fares into the overall health metrics for the service. This offers a a more comprehensive perspective on data quality. We've also added a review data accuracy tool, which enables detailed diagnosis for every registered service on boards. So these are, a summary of a few feature additions that we've had on the program thus far. Additional information can be found on the link, which will be made available when I share the slides with Tim. So feel free to click on that link and go to our changelog to understand a more comprehensive picture as to the developments we've made to the service so far. Now, talk of all the things that we've done so far. We need to talk about all the things that we are planning to do between now and September, when the contract with the incumbent supplier comes to an end. We are going to improve the compliance reporting. So the data catalog would, feature a revamped reporting system that enhances compliance reporting. This will enable sort of stakeholders to access weekly assessment of timetable and AVL data health. We hope this will provide greater transparency and accountability in the service. This new functionality will go live at some point this week. We intend to work on the introduction of SiriusX cancellations API as part of boards. We are hoping that once we do this for the first time, journey level cancellations information will be reliable, shared, in an aggregated, real-time aggregated manner. This would enable, downstream enable passengers to access more accurate and timely updates about service cancellations. We are hoping, this would empower better journey planning and reduce uncertainty during travel. We are working on integrating real-time vehicle tracking into the data accuracy tool, where publishers, bus operators can view vehicle movements real time on boards. We're hoping this feature would enhance operational oversight by enabling immediate validation of vehicle movement, also faster detection of service issues, and ultimately a more accurate performance monitoring as far as AVL is concerned on boards. In terms of A-boards, actually, let me talk on boards before we go to A-boards. On boards, we are also introducing a new interface called an operator and LTA profile, which will provide a consolidated summary of service requiring attention on boards. Hopefully this would, serve as a single source of truth for bus operators and local authorities for, the relevant bus services that are relevant to them. On A-boards, we are expanding the journey analysis tool. We are hoping this would enhance on-time performance analysis. The new updates would include new types of journey analysis, such as comparisons between inbound and outbound journeys, evaluation of travel times between stops, and assessment of average journey delays. We also intend to integrate journey cancellations through the new SiriusX API. We are hoping this would enable systems to receive real-time cancellations information directly from source into A-boards, which we believe will significantly improve the accuracy of the data presented on A-boards. by incorporating this level of detail, able to be able to provide a more reliable, nuanced, and comprehensive view of service performance and punctuality performance details on ABODs. Before we continue on the Series X, we have reached out to different data sources in terms of providing Series X data to boards. We are far from getting a national complete Series X picture. We've got some commitments from some bus operators. I guess the ask is, there is a lot of value in this data set. So if there's anybody on this call that that can help us get Series X data, either because you've got a feed you can share with us, or you've got some leverage of our operators to provide that data set to us, please feel free to reach out to me. Every Series X feed that contributes to a national data Series X picture and making that available on boards would be most appreciated. Another things that we intend to do, we are looking at providing a historic data set. So for want of a better word, a data warehouse where people will be able to access historic data on boards in the same way that they can access sort of real-time AVL and timetables data. This has come on the back of requests that we have received for access to historic data. But the requests that we have received are so varied that we've decided to conduct a user research into historic boards data sharing in order to enable us understand what an appropriate scope for that piece of work and what user requirements for that piece of work is going to look like before we make a further decision on that. The focus is to engage a broad range of users to capture their needs and use cases, identify different user personas, and this insight used to support and determine whether a dedicated data warehouse is needed, and if so, what form that is going to take. That user research is ongoing. It's being conducted by the incumbent supplier of boards. I know that some stakeholders have been contacted, or a lot of stakeholders have been contacted via surveys and user interviews. We expect that we would get some insight from that user research before September, and the decision would be made very soon or shortly after we receive that insight. But any work that is required on the back of those insights would not necessarily take place until the next contract of board. So just setting some expectations there. Then I also think there needs to be an update made on the Trans Exchange tool. So for a very long time, we had hoped that we could adopt the BWS Trans Exchange tool as developed by Powys County Council. However, after a detailed evaluation of that option, the DFT has decided not to adopt that tool. The existing DFT spreadsheet-based Trans Exchange tool will remain available to users who need that to provide Trans Exchange file to boards. In order for DFT to continue to assist publishers who otherwise do not have third-party agreements as far as the Trans Exchange tool is concerned, to continue to meet the obligations under the Public Services Vehicle regulations of 2020. The DFT recognizes that the market for the provision of Trans Exchange tool is quite a mature market, and we encourage operators or publishers who need more advanced functionalities that we are currently offering to consider commercial Trans Exchange tools in a market that is quite mature. Now, whilst no immediate changes are planned, the DFT will continue to keep the future of this tool under review as boards evolves. But we would like to state that operators would remain responsible for ensuring that data is PTI compliant, regardless of the tool that is used on boards. And that brings me to the end of my presentation as far as boards is concerned. Happy to take any questions at this point.
Thank you, Triumph. Certainly been a busy period. We have some hands already. Nick. I think, Nick, you might have more headset issues.
I haven't taken myself off mute. That would help.
Yeah,
so the Series X-ish cancellations, as I understand at the moment, operators, and certainly our operators, do put cancellations into Ticketer, cancel journeys in Ticketer, so it surfaces up on their own apps. So obviously that data is floating around there somewhere. So how much work is involved to bring that data through into BODs? And presumably, and then if it was into ABODs, then presumably there's the ability to report cancelled journeys.
Yes, and quite frankly, Nick, we're happy to take on the work that is required to bring that into BODs, and there is a commitment for that to be reflected on ABODs. And in fact, we started developing the feature to ensure that cancellations are pulled into ABODs. So there's a commitment from the DFT to ensure that that is made available as Series X for consumption, but that's also surfaced on ABODs. The current blockers, if I may call them that, are commitments from people to provide those feeds to BODs. We have developed the functionality to accept that into BODs. We just need people to volunteer that data so that we can get into BODs for the various reasons I have explained, and the various uses that we're going to have for the data on BODs. Does that answer? Or does that address the point you raised?
That makes sense, yeah. The second point was, in terms of the Excel spreadsheet timetable tool, is there an updated version of that available now? Because the last one I had an issue with, I wasn't able to update the dates on it at all. It sort of run past the end of the dates that were protected in the cells.
Interesting. Okay. I was unaware of that issue. It's one that I would pick up with you outside this call. But as far as we know, or as far as we are concerned, that tool continues to remain sort of fit for purpose. But if there are anybody who's got issues, I'm happy to deal with those issues independently, and provide updates to users independently.
Yeah, because the last response I had from anyone on it was, if I wanted a file created, I could send the information off and someone would create the file and send it back to me, which didn't seem to be a particularly smart way of working.
Okay.
I'll dig out.
KPMG?
I'm not sure if it was KPMG or where it came from, but I'll dig out the email and forward it on to you, Triumph. It's probably the best bet. That was a while ago now.
Okay. I appreciate that. As far as we know, people continue to use the tools, but like I said, if people are experiencing issues with those tools, then we are committed to addressing those issues as quickly as possible.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Okay. Dan.
Thanks, Triumph. That was really interesting what we've been up to. I've got three points, if that's okay. So the first one is regarding the historical data, and you said that to whatever I got interviewed about a couple of days ago, really interested, sounded great. But you just threw in that anything that's decided out of that won't happen until the next round of procurement for BODs. When would that likely be? What is the ITT you've got out? What's the length of contract? So I know what to expect, because obviously that will lead some development if we want to start archiving that data ourselves.
So what I said is, if we decide to go ahead with that work, it would not be done in this contract with KPMG.
Okay.
Development would most likely, happen once the next contract, is signed, whether it is with KPMG or it is with, a different supplier. So we expect to enter into the next contract in sometime in the summer. And, if we decide to go ahead with that data warehouse work, then, we will be doing that as part of that next contract that will be entering into the summer. Obviously, still need to sit down with whoever the supplier is to agree a prioritization of work, which we haven't done because we haven't started having conversation with whoever that next supplier is going to be. But hopefully, by the time we have one of these meetings again, there would have time would have provided some more clarity as to where we are. But to answer your question, if we decide to go ahead with that work, it will be the next supplier of boards who will be doing that work. Dan.
That's perfect. That makes me a lot happy. For some reason, I was reading that as a next procurement. So it could be 3 years' time or something like that. Another thing is this the year we're meant to be doing a standards review as well with regards to what types of data should be used to, I guess the big question I think I've said to Tim before is, Trans Exchange is the way that scheduled data is done at the moment. I personally would maybe like that to switch across to NetX at some stage to make easier kind of linking up with the fare data. Has any thought been done by the department about that kind of fare sort of standards review?
Yes, that's something that I have at the back of my mind. However, there is a bus bill that is currently going through Parliament at the moment, and that would have an implication on how we do things going forward. And if that bill passes, it would give the Secretary of State expanded powers around data sets that are requested to be published to the DFT, and it may be decided that BODS is the right vehicle for which those data sets are provided to the DFT. I don't know. And if that's where we are, then it then impact standards and what is what, how do we so it just seems a bit preemptive to do that standards work now whilst that bill is and that whole process is ongoing. So I think once that whole process is done and we better understand the data sets that the Secretary of State wants to get, and which one of those will be provided through boards, then we can then do a whole review of standards for data sets that are being published to boards. So it's still something we've got at the back of our minds. Is just given what is happening somewhere else that has been slightly deprioritized, so that we don't preempt some of the stuff that is happening with the bill. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, top. Yeah, perfect sense. Thank you very much. And then my final point is regarding the coach data, unsurprisingly. So with regards to obviously the new data supply as part of it, I've noticed a fair few times the data is going stale. So I've noticed when we used to run the NCSD, we had to chase up the operators almost weekly to send us data as part of it, and I've noticed that's not been going on. So luckily, I'm still on some of the email chains. What's being done to try and ensure that data doesn't go stale? Because I've seen a few instances where services that have been cancelled are still showing, the timings have been off and things like that on the coach data, and how what's being done to ensure that doesn't continue to happen.
Thank you for that, Dan. We've tried to replicate the existing system insofar as the collection and the provision of NCSD data is concerned. If you are sort of noticing issues with the data, it's difficult for me to comment on sort of individual circumstances if I don't know what these individual circumstances are. So maybe it's one for you and I to have a conversation in order for me to understand exactly what it is you are saying, and I can then provide feedback on these individual circumstances. But it's difficult for me to provide feedback on these circumstances if I don't understand these circumstances. What I can say is we have replicated what we believe was the system for collecting and updating and surfacing the coach data, and we would continue to assess the processes that we're employing and improve the processes to ensure that data quality insofar as coach data is concerned is improved, as well as integrate user feedback into program planning to ensure continued fit of purposeness of that data set. But I'm happy to have a separate conversation with you to understand the individual circumstances you're talking about. That
Yeah, sure, Trump. Yeah, maybe I'll drop you an email. We can have a quick catch-up call on that.
Thanks a lot,
That's
man.
fine.
Appreciate that.
Right. Thank you.
Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Just to pick up on Dan's point there on NCSD, Trav. I mean, we're quite keen to be involved in any conversation on NCSD as well. Just to illustrate one of Dan's issues, one of the things that concerned us was the issue that Dan raised around data going stale, etc., has been raised on the Discord thread, and it was the response that worried us slightly that there was an assumption from the team that if they don't receive any new data, the assumption is the current data is correct, which worried us slightly, or we thought was a bold assumption given it's not a mandated data set. And they also said, if we've got any feedback, we can go back to them and they'll go and chase that. And to the credit, where we have raised it, they have gone away and done it. However, with this data set in particular, the problem with that approach is that we then have a lag in the data being correct. Like Dan said, we've got some things running when they shouldn't be running. And also, we did have an example of a coach data's operator just dropping out completely, and we were returning there for a journey plan, which would have been a simple coach journey. We were giving away, don't know, half a dozen bus journeys, a train journey, and an 8-hour trip. That wasn't the kind of right thing to do. So it is impacting customers, and I just think it's whether the brief changes that, like Dan mentioned, that there's a proactive approach rather than a reactive, because that will kind of solve a number of these issues. So if there is to be a conversation offline, I'm quite happy alongside Dan and aiming to be involved in that.
Mike, and thanks for the feedback. Yeah, it's something I take away and hopefully provide some update to yourself,
Yeah.
Mike.
Thanks, Trev.
Welcome.
John.
Thanks very much indeed for the presentation. As end user consumers of public transport information, both my dog and I are extremely grateful for all the efforts you're making to improve that. But if I may make one slightly left field comment, your opening slide showed a group of passengers queuing at the roadside to access a vehicle. It appeared to be an extremely high floor and therefore low accessibility vehicle. And I hope very much the DFT won't be using that as an example of good practice in anything that you go public with.
That is a very good shout. I should have been more sensitive to that in my choice of imagery for the slide. Just to add though, accessibility data is also something that we are quite keen on, because we appreciate the value of that data set to the customers who would require that data set to ensure a seamless and an enjoyable travel experience. Although there is no mandate for that data, there is some thinking around that going into program planning to ensure that we are surfacing the right accessibility data to passengers who would require that data. Both static accessibility data in terms of bus stop artifacts, bus stop accessibility artifacts, but also in bus and where possible real-time accessibility information being passed on to passengers. So you and I think in the spirit of it, we're in the same place. But I would think better of my choice of imagery next time, John.
No problem, and thanks very much. Good to know that you're alive to these issues. It did occur to me when I was looking at Naptown that it's unfortunate that bus stop accessibility isn't currently an attribute that's recorded there, but potentially it could be. But thanks anyway.
Most welcome, John.
Yeah, thanks, John. And that image has been used for quite a long time on bus slides, and it's the first time that I think anybody's raised it. So yeah, very good spot. Nick.
Shows what having end users on your call does, doesn't it?
It does indeed. It does indeed. Nick.
Coach data and the current way in which some National Express services are presented, I don't think it's particularly customer friendly, and it appears as if the data is taken from retail systems. And I'll just drop an example in the chat for the National Express 504, which comes through Cornwall, but doesn't have registered sections through Cornwall anymore, so they can't carry people short distances. So we've got one trip, the 8:30 from Victoria to Penzance, has 6 different lines or columns. The 10:30 from Victoria to Penzance has 7 columns in the timetable data. Is that really the best way for this data to be presented?
Good question. The presentation of data is driven by user research, and based on user research, the way we present data, user research has informed the way we present data. But I appreciate the feedback, and I think it's one that we can take away to look at how we use your feedback to improve the current offering. So happy to please send me a message regarding this, and I can pick this up with the development team, and we can see how we improve the offering.
It does seem to be something which is unique to National Express, because Flixbus data for their newly started services in Cornwall, it doesn't show in the same way, but they've got that same issue where they've got timing points which are less than 15 miles apart. So they're in the same situation as they're not registered sections for what could be local travel, but they're not splitting their trips down in their data to multiple columns to show that. It just seems to be a National Express thing.
So there's been quite a lot of discussion in various forums about this, and some Flixbus services are presented in that same way, and it's to do with ticketing restrictions and the complexity or the impossibility at the moment of reflecting those ticketing conditions in the timetable and in fares data. So it's to try and if you looked at the data, you would find that some of those stops are marked as set down only, so you can't plan a journey from in some of those columns from some of those stops, depending on where the operator allows you to get on and off because of the local service registration issues. So it has been discussed in quite a lot of forums, and that's the sort of the best compromise, unfortunately, at the moment, with the data formats that are in use and available.
Yeah, so just looking at Flix new service that runs from Falmouth Tremoe to Victoria, and that's got pick up at Falmouth University, pick up at Truro. Well, that's less than 15 miles apart, but that's not split in the same way as the National Express services between Falmouth and Truro are.
You'd probably find it hasn't got a set down at that second stop.
It's got nothing on it. So if you're looking at it on raw value, you would think you could travel from Tremoe campus to Truro at 6 o'clock in the morning on that service. There's nothing to tell you you can't travel on it.
Right. Well, so I know some of the other Flixbus services, particularly in the northeast, have got similar issues to this. So yeah, but we'll Triumph for myself will take it away, and we'll have another review of it to see whether there's any new intelligence that helps us define how it could be coded differently. Keith, and then we need to wrap this section up.
It was just that in your report, you seem to emphasise a lot of things have been brought in-house, which just made me curious to what was still not in-house, and whether those things would be coming in-house, and whether future things would be in-house by default.
I am pleased to inform you there is nothing that is not in-house at this point. Everything has been brought in-house, Keith, and we hope to keep it that way. Except, of course, there is a serious reason why we cannot keep it in-house, of which there would be a rigorous decision-making process as to how we proceed with that. But everything on the service and every service provided by the program is now within sort of DFT infrastructure, open source, open code, with all codes published on GitHub and all logics made available for review and challenge. Yes, everything is in-house now, Keith.
Cool.
Excellent. Thank you, Triumph.
Most welcome, Tim.
So where did we get to? So next up, Scottish Bus Open Data Consultation. If you weren't aware, then Transport Scotland have a consultation out pending the drafting of regulations for the Scottish equivalent of BODs, tackling issues that are slightly different north of the English border. Yeah, if you weren't aware, there's a link on the agenda. Various organisations are putting together responses to it. If you don't want to put a response in yourself, it's very easy though. But you've got some views on the questions it's asking, data, a lot of the things that we talk about in this forum. So data formats, structures, data quality and management issues. Then if you don't want to put one in yourself, then let me know your thoughts and views, and I will see whether we can weave that into the Artig response that will be going in. But I know, CPT, ATCO, all sorts of other organisations are also putting responses together for that open data consultation. Anybody got any questions on it? I have already reached out to Transport Scotland to ask them to come to the September meeting once they've had the responses in and a bit of time to evaluate them, to talk to us about what they found. So we'll hear more in September on the outcome of that. No. Okay, then let's move on to Artig update. So we've talked about the non-passenger stop guidance. Artig has also recently released a guide. It's currently in PDF on how does RTI work, how does real-time information work. Very frequently asked question. A lot of local politicians have been asking. A lot of national politicians have been asking this time last year. No, after the election last year, it wasn't quite this time last year, about how does real-time information work, and why doesn't, why does it seem so difficult? Working with Nick and Teresa, who are often on this call, we've done a guide to that. It's much more graphical than the traditional Artig technical documentation, so hopefully it's quite accessible to people. You can, at the moment, there's a news item on the front of the Artig website which will take you to it. It is interactive, so you can click through it and bits of the screen change and things like that. And in the next week or two, we'll have a web browser version of it as well, because we do know that there are some device software variations that mean that the interactivity bit of the PDF don't work as well as it could be. So yeah, there'll be a fully browser-based version of it imminently. Hopefully that will help you when you're explaining to people how real-time works and some of the difficulties. So it talks about things like cross-journey predictions and the challenges with that, and it goes through all of the different steps that different personas that are involved in real-time information needs to do to make things work properly. So if you've got any feedback, let me know, but hopefully that will be very helpful. standard for bus priority. There's an update to that will be coming out in the next month or so. It's currently going through checking with various organisations. So that's the way buses request priority from traffic control centres. Just some tweaks to keep things up to date there. There is also a group that is starting to come up with some stuff on a bit of a longer term look at how traffic signal priority is being provided, looking at connected vehicles and things that are happening in Europe, for example, but starting to come to some consensus and some conclusions, but that'll be well into the autumn before anything is documented and signed off. And the other one that should be of interest to people in this group is the content management to display interface standard. There is a version 2 of that, which is again going through final stages of validation with suppliers, and in the next week or so will be published and available. It is already being quite well used in its current version, but version 1s of things rarely stand the test of time, because you find use cases that you didn't plan for and things like that. But there are thousands of displays using it in the UK already. But version 2 will move things forward and help improve some of the standardization and issues that have been found with version 1. So that's the stuff of interest from Artig. We have an event later this month in Milton Keynes on the 24th about meeting passenger information need. So we've got Campaign for Better Transport, Traveline talking, TfL, Thomas Pocklington Trust about accessibility requirements and things like that. So a wide range of sort of external user based input, as well as the normal supplier input. So if you're interested in passenger information, which you probably will be, if you're involved in PTIC, then have a look at that and come along. Any questions about Artig stuff, Mike?
Just, do you have to be an Artig member to come along to that meeting? Just out of interest.
It is free for Artig members. There is a small fee for non-Artig members.
We still aren't. I still haven't sorted that out. It's been on my list for about 10 years, probably. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then EU standards development. Not a lot to talk about, to be honest. The normal small change stuff is happening, but over the next sort of 6 months there will be a glossary of language and terms for public transport coming out, which is going to be really useful. So comparing all the different bits of legislation and the terminology and language used across all of the bits of European legislation, and when it says line in this bit, that means service over here and whatever. So bringing all that together and then linking that to the technical standards. So that's going to be a really useful bit of work. The work on the historical data protocol, so you can move historical data around and historical performance data. That's progressing. It's taking its time though, but still expecting first publicly available drafts in the autumn. So when that's available, I'll circulate the links to that for review and comment by this group, because I'm sure you'll have some thoughts on that. Any questions on EU standards? No. Okay, the issues log, we have 3 issues on there. I will deal with 2 of them. No, I won't. So issue 103, personalised fare zones. So this is the concept in Wales where somebody can go, this is the zone that I want to be able to travel in using my personal pass. So personalised ticketing. We're working with Mark from Transport for Wales to properly document the business requirements and use cases for that, so that we can then turn that into requests for change for NetX so that it can support them properly. It supports zones already for zonal tickets, but not for personalised zones, which are slightly different and a bit more complex to model. So that is progressing, that one. Issue 105, distance-based fares in the BODS profile. That is with KPMG to look at and review. Stephen hasn't been on this call today, so I don't have an update on where that is for you. And issue 104, supporting block number. So last time we talked about the need to get more block data in for cross-journey predictions and operational management of services. So I will circulate a doodle for those of you that are interested in being involved in those conversations, what we need to do to help operators understand why they should be providing blocks and some of the issues that they're facing in sharing it and creating them at the moment. So I'll circulate a doodle for that very shortly. So are there any more issues? Any new ones? Mike?
Sorry for being thick, but what's the doodle?
Oh, a poll of when people can attend a call. So
Right.
A smarter version than asking all of you to give me the dates that you're available.
Right. So how do you express an interest in that 104? Do I just have to drop you an email, or?
When I'll circulate it to
Right. Okay.
all of the PTIC representatives, you just click on the link and fill it out.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks for that. Cheers.
That's all right. Okay. Anything else on issues? No. Okay. Our next meeting is September the 18th. After the summer. By then, BODS will have appointed a new supplier, so I'm sure Triumph will be updating us on handover arrangements and things like that. And we've got Transport Scotland coming to talk to us. So that proves to be hopefully quite an interesting session for everybody. Is there any other business? Is there anything that anybody wants to raise before we close? No. Okay. In which case, yes, Triumph, sorry, you will have appointed a supplier, not necessarily a new one. KPMG might win. That is my bad. So thank you for correcting me. Okay, is there any other business? No. In which case, thank you all for your time this afternoon. Have a good rest of the day and week.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you all. Cheers.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, everyone.